Through a psychoanalytic perspective, literature studied in the course illustrates that the state of self-pity initiates one's corrupt desires to betray their loyalty to those that are important to them, which leads to an inevitable feeling of unfulfillment. This is depicted in each text through uncontrolled greed, which leads to destruction, sexual tension, which replaces emptiness, and deceitful appearances that masks one's true identity. So whenever someone wants something and they get it, they just want more and more and more. But when do they know when to stop? How do they learn their lesson about greed? In each of these characters' instances, they learn through negative situations. So for example, in The Sisters Brothers, Charlie and Eli both quit the Commodore, and they want to work for Herman and Morris on the formula. They do this because they feel like they're not getting good treatment in their job by the Commodore or in their occupation in general, and they just want more money. And they think that working with the formula would actually be beneficial to their life, but this ends up being not true because Herman and Morris die and Charlie loses his hand and the brothers are left with nothing. They lose everything. They have no money, they have no place to stay, they have no job, so they end up going back to the one place where it all started, which is their mother's house. They do this because their self-pity in their lives actually took over their mind and ruined everything for them because of greed. So in A Streetcar Named Desire, Stanley wants full control and power over Stella. This is due to his lack of masculinity and his desire to be more manly. He does this through physical and mental abuse, and when Stella stands up for herself, Stanley realizes that he needs to change his ways, or at least back off. So during the poker game, Stella says, "This is my house and I'll talk as much as I want to." Now this is really important because this is actually like one of the first times that Stella stands up for herself and talks back to Stanley. She's aware that she deserves better, but she's just afraid, and Stanley has the possibility of losing his wife, and he already lost trust that she had in him. In The Painted Door, Anne depicts and compares John to Stephen throughout the whole story. Not only does she compare him to Stephen physically, but she also does it about her past experiences. So an example of the physical comparison is in the story. It says, "Swiftly she was making comparisons again, his face so different to John, so handsome and young and clean-shaven." But to contrast that, during the past experiences, she also says that she had danced with Stephen 6 or 7 times in the evening, and they had talked about it for many months. John never danced or enjoyed himself. So that just shows that Anne got more enjoyment in her relationship with Stephen than she is with John, and she's just unhappy in her relationship. Whenever someone's going through a hard time, they like to cope. So whether that be through drugs, alcohol, smoking, or even sex, that's how they manage. So the characters in these texts manage through sexual desires. In The Sisters Brothers, Charlie has sex with the woman that Eli was interested in, and even though Charlie didn't know this at the time, he rubbed it in Eli's face when he found out, which shows that he lacks self-confidence, and he is reflecting his insecurities onto Eli, which is making him insecure. Charlie uses sex to make himself feel full because he lacks any feeling, and he has sex with numerous women throughout the book. Mostly, well, yes, they are whores. And he does this in order to get some type of feeling, whether that be from sexual pleasure. But this leaves him feeling unfulfilled because he's never actually truly happy. The sexual pleasure just lasts momentarily, and then he's back to feeling nothing. So even though it created distance in the relationship, it's not even worth it. In The Streetcar Named Desire, Blanche flirts with Stanley, and they end up having sex. Now, it doesn't say that Stanley raped Stella, but Blanche didn't also give permission either, but she also didn't stop him. So, Blanche flirts with Stanley through the stage directions with her movements and her eyes, but she also does it with words that she says, and she kind of nonchalantly flirts with him and gives the impression that she likes him. They have sex because they both lack morality, since they don't really know what true love is. Blanche, for example, she had sex with numerous men in her past, so she kind of has blurry view on love. And same with Stanley, since he abuses Stella, he doesn't really know what love is, so that's how the two of them come together. But they just end up betraying Stella by having sex. But they don't really care because they lack morality. In The Painted Door, Anne craves Stephen's touch because John neglects to give her affection. Even at the beginning of the story, when John went off to work, they didn't really have any physical contact, which shows that the distance in the relationship that they already had. Now, Anne craves touch because she feels the need to be loved by a man in order to feel worthy. So Anne ultimately ends up losing both Stephen and John. She loses John when John sees them laying beside each other, possibly sleeping together. It's implied, but it's not said. And she loses Stephen because he admits at the end of the story that he never actually has feelings for her. So when people first meet someone, they try to give their best impression. They like to put away their negative aspects and just promote the positive ones. So deceitful appearances mask one's true identity. In The Sisters Brothers, Charlie utilizes alcohol and violence in order to mask his sensitive core. So he is drunk throughout most of the book. Whenever something serious happens, he just drinks. He drinks away his problems so he doesn't have to deal with them or show emotion. This shows that he's afraid to show his feelings, and he's kind of weary about it. And he takes his drunken anger out on Eli, which has an effect on their relationship. It's a big reason why they're not as close as they could be, and it makes Eli frightened of him. In A Streetcar Named Desire, Blanche lies about her past in order to make herself sound better because she had a shameful past. She slept with many men, and she lied about many things. So this creates barriers between her relationship with Stanley, her relationship with Stella, and her relationship with Mitch. Stella constantly questions her, and this is the reasoning behind Mitch's and Blanche's breakup. Mitch breaks up with her because he figures out that she's lying, and Blanche lies because she is insecure about her past, and she wants to try to fix it, but she doesn't really know how to. Like, she wants to change who she is, or at least give the impression that she's changed. In The Painted Door, Anne acts cold to make others think that she is happily independent, but this is not the case. She's actually very lonely and sad. It's said when she is thinking to herself, but she doesn't actually tell anyone how upset she is. This distances her relationship. It distances her relationship with Stephen in the past, and even when he comes over, she doesn't try to make contact with him, even speaking with him much, and it creates distance with hers and John's relationship, which is why there's so many barriers in the relationship. So in conclusion, all of these texts show that the state of self-pity does create desires to betray the ones that people find important to them. And this results in a feeling of unfulfillment because no matter how hard they try, they're never actually fulfilled.